Today we're going to look a little bit at the Russian Revolution and a bit at the politics and philosophies behind it in order to kind of understand more why George Orwell wrote Animal Farm the way he did. So let's start with the history of the Russian Revolution. In February, the revolution starts in 1917. Russia's working class, as well as other groups, did not feel their needs were being met. So their revolt led to the overthrow of Russian leader Tsar Nicholas II. Now, a provisional government was put in place to represent the needs of the working class. But then in October, the revolution of 1917, the Bolshevik Party, led by Vladimir Lenin, overthrows the provisional government because they felt the needs of Russia's urban workers and peasants were still not being met. So who were the Bolshevik Party? They were socialists. They take the theories of Karl Marx. But what is the goal of socialism? Well, socialism essentially talks about the distribution of wealth going to all members of society. Well, how could that possibly be achieved? Well, you then have community control over citizens' possessions and means of production. If you're going to be producing coal in that city, the entire community should be in control over the entire coal production and distribution of it. If you are producing wheat as a community, everybody is going to have control over the production and the distribution of wheat. Now, who controls the community? Well, those would be small councils or groups that should be elected in by that certain community. And then, of course, you're going to have a larger government who's going to be governing over those small councils or groups. Now, once all of this is put into place, the final stage of Marxist socialist theory becomes what is known as communism. You can see the word community in communism. So then what is the goal of communism? It's to create a classless society where everything should be in some sense equal. Well, how could that be achieved? Well, you need to eliminate private ownership of capital by placing ownership of the means of production into the hands of the state. Now, the Bolshevik Party is later called the Communist Party, with Vladimir Lenin as one of its leaders. Now, the Communist Party united all means of production under state control and created a government controlled by workers' Soviets. And Soviets would be another word for councils. Now, unfortunately for Vladimir Lenin, he doesn't live long after the revolution. And so one of his secondaries, Joseph Stalin, eventually takes over the government, turning Russia into a totalitarian state. Now, Stalin's going to maintain his power by threatening and then getting rid of and eliminating all of his enemies. He's going to use propaganda at the state level to maintain social control. He's also going to utilize a personal police force to execute any and all of his orders. So when George Orwell comes along in the 1930s and begins to write Animal Farm, it's essentially an allegory to describe in disguise Joseph Stalin's cruelty in the Soviet Union. So we've been throwing around the words totalitarianism and authoritarianism. What is the goal of totalitarianism? Well, that is to exercise firm control over both the public and the private lives of its citizens. You can see the word total in there. They want control over total or everything, both public and private lives. Now, who has the power in a totalitarian state? One person, a dictator. That person might have other people beneath them, like a secret police or other guards that are going to be in control of other things for them, but they are going to be the overreaching one person in charge. What is the goal of authoritarianism? Well, authority, you can see here the word authority, has strict control. And so to have strict control over the population, often through overt oppression or the elimination of democratic rights and liberties, makes you the authority over everything. Now, who makes the laws in authoritarianism? Now, this is going to be a government which is going to have a dictator as the leader. And how are the citizens controlled? through the use of propaganda. So totalitarianism, somebody, one person is totally in charge. Whereas authoritarianism, you still have that dictator in charge, but now they have a government that is under their leadership. And of course, everyone is going to be using propaganda to control their citizens. Well, there is your introduction into the Russian Revolution and the different goals that George Orwell had in describing his allegory of Joseph Stalin. Thank you so much for stopping by. If you'd like to learn more about George Orwell or more about Animal Farm, please check out my other videos on this channel. And as always, I'd appreciate it if you subscribed.